Welcome back. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and I'm now being joined by two gentlemen, the Executive Director, Convention and Business Integrity, Mr. Soji Apampa, from my far left. Good morning, Mr. Apampa.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the program.
Good to see you again.
And my immediate left is the Executive Director, Business Development at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Mr. Jalu Waziri. Good morning, Mr. Waziri.
Morning.
Right. I'd like to begin with you, Mr. Apampa. Let's start by understanding that term, corporate governance. I mean, how would you ordinarily describe that to a lay person, corporate governance?
It's simply about the way companies are directed and controlled. You know, how do you make choices that will lead to the prosperity or the impoverishment of companies, their growth and long-term stability, or whether or not they actually fizzle out very quickly. All of those decisions taken in the boardroom that affect all the stakeholders and shareholders of a company, all of it has to do with corporate governance.
And how do you relate it with integrity in doing business?
The big part is that there are choices, as I said, that are being made every day. Mm-hmm. Some of those choices are ethical, some of those choices are not so ethical. And the results that we find in the marketplace results to breaches of integrity or people who are doing business with integrity.
Right. Now, looking at the country as a whole, how would you describe the level of corporate governance in Nigeria?
I think in certain pockets you would find some people have no choice. For example, foreign companies, a lot of them who are here to do business in Nigeria know that even if Nigeria is tolerant of bad behavior, their home governments now have laws where they can hold them accountable at home for their poor behavior in Nigeria. They tend to run away from illegal practices. Also, you have Nigerian companies who are trying to get listed in Johannesburg or in Toronto or in London, who, even if you're not holding them accountable at home, they know that if they make a mistake in those jurisdictions, it could finish their business in Nigeria. So you have pockets of excellence from there. But by and large, most people are in the survival mode. I've got to survive. And in Nigeria, to survive, the impression is you do whatever needs to be done. And that is what we're trying to change. We believe that the time has come for people to do things the right way, and that it has been proven that you can perform doing things the right way.
All right, talking about change, we're looking at, on Monday, they'll launch a corporate governance rating system. What is this all about?
Basically, it is to get companies to put their money where their mouth is. How do we make a connection between the choices that companies make and the fortunes that the companies make? And we're looking for a fair system that can link good behavior to good results, bad behavior also to bad results. Now talking about how people view the share price, how people place a premium on a company's shares, and whether or not they want to hold those shares, they want to buy those shares, they want to invest in and risk their own funds into that money. It would be a system that would help them and guide them through that kind of choice.
Okay. Now, Mr. Waziri, let me come to you now. The NSE, of course, has decided to come up with this corporate governance rating system. What exactly informed this decision at this time?
So if you look at it from a portfolio perspective, investment managers typically are looking to invest money and trust that, the companies they invest in will do the right thing, will give them the right information at the right time and hold them accountable for that. Now, for the exchange, we continuously try and raise the standards for our issuers, which are our companies. And one of the ways that we thought we could raise the standard further is by subjecting companies to a corporate governance rating system. Let me try and explain it in layman's terms. Forgive me for using this analogy, but I think if you look at it from a perspective, corporate governance is like a husband giving his wife his phone to actually check through the messages that are there without any fear of somebody finding out what is not supposed to be there. Because when you do the right thing, it's easier for you to subject yourself to scrutiny. And we think that, that would give confidence to investors, knowing that the companies that are in the exchange actually have certain level of trust embedded in them.
Right. Now, coming up with this corporate governance rating system, how do you think it's going to make a difference, not just to the listed companies, to the investor, and of course to Nigeria in particular?
So, for me, corporate governance is about setting standards and setting certain ways of behavior. Now, if we start with listed companies and investors invest in them and see certain behaviors that they like, what is likely to happen is that you see more deal flow coming into Nigeria. That's number one. Number two is that companies that are even outside the exchange will try and mimic the behavior of the companies that are in the exchange, especially when they go through this scrutiny, and try and get that kind of behavior imbibed in them because they want to attract other investors or they want to attract businesses. And I think it's a good way to start. Mr.
Soji, you want to add something to that?
Well, yes. I think Nigeria as a whole has been a very successful, in quotes, FDI destination. Only last year did we get unseated from the #1 position we've held for 2 years running. But if you look into the kind of foreign portfolio investments we've been getting, it's been hot money, it's been very skittish money that is too scared. As soon as anything is said, they're taking their money out of Nigeria. And that kind of action and behavior hurts the country. Why are we not getting the more longer term, the more well-considered investment? Is because we're still several grades below investment level as a sovereign. And I think improving the corporate governance environment in Nigeria as a whole will add towards the reforms that are needed to push Nigeria's sovereign credit rating up. It will also affect the companies that are within the country, affect their own rating as well, and affect the perception of investors about the jurisdiction that they're taking their money. So in the whole, it lifts the corporate governance standard in Nigeria, and it helps all of those doing business there to be able to position better in relation to the kind of funding they need.
All right, Mr. Waziri, we've had a number of cases of market infraction. At what point did the exchange realize there is need to institute this rating system?
It has, since this new management came on board on the exchange, corporate governance has been on the forefront of the burner for us. And so from day one, we felt that how do we ensure that the rules and regulations that are laid out for the issuers or for dealing members of the exchange are actually followed. Not just that, but how do we make sure that the rules are fair, transparent, and have clear consequence management system. So today at the exchange, around our rules and regulations, we have a zero tolerance policy. So because of that, we ensure that things are very clear, things are known to be laid out in a transparent way, and we expect a certain behavior. And so that has been on the burner, and this was one of the mediums in which we want to continue to ensure that corporate governance is embedded in our market.
All right, Mr. Soji, I need you to tell me how this is going to work. What is the methodology of implementation? What are the companies expected to do? What is the exchange expected to do as well? And you are partnering with them, a Convention on Business Integrity.
Yes.
Your own role in all of this.
Okay. In terms of how it works, the rating system is actually simple. We've taken the lowest common denominator for corporate governance codes, which is the SEC code, as the starting point. There are some more stringent things for the banking industry, for insurance and so on, but the SEC code is at least common to all the listed companies. So that's the beginning. And we have added also international best practice. So we've looked at the areas of ethics and business ethics and anti-corruption. We've looked at internal and external audit and control. We've looked at transparency and disclosure. We've looked at stakeholder and shareholder rights. We've looked also at board structure and responsibilities and come up with 36 indicators across those categories. But what we've done is to say 50% of the rating should be in the hands of the companies immediately, because you cannot know how well a company complies
Okay, they
than the
just have to
company
rate
itself.
themselves.
In the
first.
beginning, they'll do a self-assessment.
Okay.
Now, that self-assessment, you have to get 70% that shows you are at least compliant. But as soon as you hit 70%, it triggers a review.
Okay.
Externally, some external reviewer will then go in and check your self-declaration.
And if you don't, sorry to cut in there.
No, there is a board.
All right.
The CGRS board is the one that is sending the reviewer. If you don't participate in it, then you cannot be in it. Then
That's
you
what
have
I'm
to
saying.
drop out.
If you don't get to that 70%.
If you don't get to 70%, then you are not included, you are not rated.
Okay.
And those who are rated have some benefits that will accrue to them. And that is the incentive for actually being rated, apart from the fact that it will become mandatory for all the companies that are listed on the exchange. So if you don't, everybody will know that you fell down on the first rung. So even those who have invested in your company will know, and that is the connection. So if you're badly run, those who have invested in you will know that you are badly run, and then comes the decision they have to take, whether to retain the investment in you or to take some kind of action. But that's the first 50%. The next 10% is still in the hands of the companies. Do your directors know why they're sitting on a board? Do they understand their fiduciary responsibilities? And there we have a fiduciary awareness certification test that all the directors have to take. And based on the scores from the test and your self-assessment, you could get up to 60% out of 100. Now, the remainder 40 is divided into two. The first 20 is, what do your stakeholders say? Do they agree with your self-assessment? Do they agree with you if you say that you've been behaving ethically? Do they agree that that is the way you run your business? That's another 20%. But then there's the last 20%, which is like a focus group of experts who've been watching the industry for a long time. And they're starting with a blank sheet of paper without knowing what you have self-declared. They will, based on their experience, say that this company, and come to a consensus on what they think the rating should be for the company. So three sources are then compared: the self-assessment by the company, the feedback from stakeholders, and then the feedback from experts who have been watching the industry. And that together forms the 100%. So even if people don't like you, at least 60% is in your hands. All you need is 10% more, and you've made it through. If you are rubbish and have a big PR department and a big PR budget and can make all your stakeholders like you, the best you can do is 40%. It will not take you over the edge. So we've tried to balance the weightings of the different components to make sure that it's not so easy to game the system as we know people would try to do.
Okay, now you just mentioned that it's going to be made compulsory, I suppose.
Yes.
But in a situation where, I mean, a company refuses to comply, is there any penalty for that? Well, I'll ask Mr. Waziri.
No, you know, when the stock exchange is like a club, so you come in there as a member and undertake to actually behave in a certain way, including certain rules and regulations.
Okay.
And you stand on taking that you do certain things post-listing. One of it that will add subsequently is that you'll be rated on the CGRS system. And I think it's important that, again, this is cut across through all the companies, so there's a fair game on the board.
Okay, and now in all of this, just as Mr. Saji has mentioned about 4 stages of this methodology,
Yes.
Where does the exchange come in? What exactly is your role?
So because we have to be as independent as possible, which is why we partnered with the Convention for Business Integrity, ours is to introduce the companies to the CGRS system, corporate governance rating system, and then the evaluation is done by externals rather than from us. All we do is sit on the board and then governance board, and then ensure that certain things are put in certain ways according to the agreements that we had signed with them.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and when we return, we will continue with this conversation. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we will continue with that a conversation on corporate governance, looking at the rating system that is being introduced at the Nigerian Stock Exchange to ensure that the companies quoted at the exchange comply to corporate governance, and of course that would definitely impact positively on Nigeria as a whole. Do stay tuned. We'll be back shortly.